Computers and the internet have opened up the world in ways previously thought to be impossible, but as a wise uncle once said, with great power comes great responsibility. Sadly, many like to abuse this power, and as a result a number of nasty computer viruses have been created, with only malicious intentions. So join us as we count 10 of the worst computer viruses ever created.
Number 10.
Melissa. Melissa is a computer virus based on a Microsoft Word macro. It was designed so that it could spread through email messages and cause havoc on both government and private sector networks. In short, the Melissa virus tempts recipients into opening a document with an email message along the lines of, "Here's that document you asked for, don't show it to anyone else." Once the user opens the document, the virus is replicated and sends itself out to another 50 users, chosen from the top contacts in the recipient's address book. Melissa spread ferociously throughout the world after it was released. The increase in email traffic from this alone forced some companies to discontinue their email services until the virus was contained. The creator of Melissa, David L. Smith, was sentenced to 20 months in jail, was given a $5,000 fine, and he was forbidden to access computer networks without court authorization.
Number 9.
ILOVEYOU. Only 1 year after the Melissa virus rained terror upon the internet, a new threat entered the game from the Philippines, this time in the form of a worm with the name of I Love You. This virus traveled by email just like Melissa, but the message instead was a love letter from a secret admirer. Upon opening the attachment, many bad things happened. According to McAfee, the I Love You virus had a number of abilities such as copying itself and hiding the copies in several folders on the victim's hard drive, adding new files to the computer's registry keys, replacing files with copies of itself, and sending itself through chat clients as well as email. So who made this destructive menace? Some think it was a chap called Onel de Guzman, but this was never confirmed and he was never convicted. According to some sources, the virus caused over $10 billion in damages.
Number 8.
SQL Slammer. The SQL Slammer, also known as Sapphire, hit in late January 2003. It brought down many important systems, including the Bank of America's ATM service, Continental Airlines ticketing and check-in systems, and even caused the city of Seattle's 911 service to suffer outages. Estimates put the damages to be around $1 billion before the virus was stopped. This is partly because of how rapidly it spread. Only minutes after infecting its first server, Slammer was doubling its infected victims every few seconds.
Number 7.
The Klez Virus. The original iteration was similar to the Melissa virus in that it could send itself to people in the victim's address book. However, shortly after its introduction, hackers modified the virus to not only send itself to contacts, but to also use a different name from the contact list and pretend to be the sender. This is called spoofing. The email appears to come from one source when in fact it comes from another. It makes it very difficult to stop the spam email since the recipient doesn't know where the emails are actually coming from. It also doesn't help to block the sender's address since that isn't the proper address. Finally, recipients were more likely to trust the contents of the email since it was coming from somebody they knew.
Number 6.
MyDoom. MyDoom was another worm that created a backdoor into operating systems, allowing remote users to control the machine. The initial outbreak of MyDoom occurred in February 2004 and had 2 stages. Stage 1 caused the virus to begin a denial of service attack, and Stage 2 stopped the virus from distributing itself any further. Later that same year, a second outbreak occurred that caused many problems for search engine providers, since the MyDoom virus would send search requests to the search engines using email addresses it found or already knew. This caused millions of search requests to hit search engines like Google, and it resulted in their services being slowed down, or in some cases it even caused them to crash. According to Message Labs, 1 in every 12 emails carried MyDoom at one time.
Number 5.
Nimda. Apparently 2001 was a hot year for nasty viruses. Nimda was another worm that spread rapidly through the internet from the moment it launched. According to TrueSecure's chief technical officer Peter Tippett, it only took 22 minutes for Nimda from the moment it was launched to top the list of reported attacks. Due to the release date, exactly 1 week after the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, some media quickly began speculating a link between the virus and Al-Qaeda, though this theory ended up proving proving unfounded. Its main priority was to attack internet servers and to destroy internet traffic through emails, opening network shares, browsing unsecured websites, and exploiting Microsoft IIS vulnerabilities.
Number 4.
Code Red and Code Red 2. More worms. These surfaced in the summer of 2001. Both worms exploited a vulnerability within the operating system of Windows 2000 and Windows NT. In simple terms, the worms would overload the operating system with information, causing the machines to crash. However, a Windows 2000 machine infected by the Code Red 2 worm brought an even worse result. The machine would no longer obey commands from the user, since the worm allowed a remote user to access and control the machine, allowing them to not only access information, but they could even use the infected machine to commit crimes. This brought a second layer of issues for the victims of the worm, since they may also be accused of causing crimes they didn't actually commit. Windows NT machines were also vulnerable, but to a much lesser extent. Microsoft eventually addressed the issues with a patch, stopping the worm from being able to infect any more machines.
Number 3.
Sasser and Netsky. Sasser and Netsky behaved in different ways, but similarities in the code allowed authorities to track the viruses back to their origin. A 17-year-old German named Sven Yashan. The Sasser worm used a Microsoft vulnerability to infect systems. Once infected, it searched for other vulnerable systems and instructed them to download the virus. In addition to this, it manipulated the operating system to make it difficult to shut down the system without pulling power from the machine. Netsky moved through emails by spoofing itself and caused denial of service attacks on systems. Sophos believed that Netsky at one time accounted for a quarter of all computer viruses on the internet. Sven didn't spend any time in jail. He was given a year and 9 months of probation because he was under 18 at the time of his conviction.
Number 2.
Stormworm. It was late 2006 when Stormworm was first identified. It got its name from the message subject in the email, which read 230 dead as storm batters Europe. It was a Trojan horse program that had many versions. Some of them would turn computers into bots or zombies and would be used to send further spam mail across the internet. The people behind Stormworm were smart and would rename the message subjects to match recent news. For example, just before the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the subjects were changed to things like China's deadliest ever earthquake. At its peak, Stormworm accounted for around 8% of all infected machines. It may still be around today, but to a much lesser extent, and as long as you keep your antivirus updated and remain cautious when opening attachments, you'll likely be just fine.
Number 1.
Cryptolocker. I myself used to work on an IT help desk not long ago, and I had the misfortune of coming across this terrible thing. Cryptolocker is a ransomware, meaning that it's designed to block access to files or computers until a sum of money is paid, and boy was it effective. It surfaced in late 2013 via email attachments. When the files were activated, it would encrypt pretty much any files it could find on both local and network drives. This was bad news for companies because as long as the infected person had a network share mounted at the time of infection, Cryptolocker could jump onto the server and infect everything there as well. Once a machine was infected, it would display a message offering to decrypt the data for a certain amount. From cases I came across, it was often around $400. What made Cryptolocker even more infuriating was the fact that it was really easy to remove from a computer, but this didn't help get the data back since it was already encrypted. Reportedly, Cryptolocker extorted a sum in excess of $3 million before it was brought to a halt in the summer of 2014.